Were there any warning signs or moments where you felt you could have taken a different path?
Hindsight 2020, yeah, of course. Right? Absolutely. And I'm sure there was moments throughout the elevation of my drug use that I was like, "Damn, this is not a good idea, bro." But that didn't, you know, until you're emotionally intelligent enough to recognize what those feelings are and what those thoughts are, you're not going to act on them or use them. So yeah, I'm probably, but definitely ignored them.
How did the justice system treat you during your trial and sentencing process, and how did that compare to what you thought you were going to encounter?
Which time? Because I mean, like, by the time I got sentenced to prison, it was a decade worth of in and out of facilities, and I was, I knew I was facing 6 years in prison. I knew that was the next step. So by the time I made it to getting incarcerated from prison, I deliberately turned myself in so that I could go do my time. So I guess,
Sorry, could you
just,
say that over again? That
meow.
was loud.
um, yeah. By the time I spent a decade being incarcerated between facilities and jail and programs. I mean, I did it all: probation, boot camp, drug court, Swift Insure is where I ended. By the time I got to that process, I knew what to expect from the system. I'm about to go to jail, eat 3 meals under an itchy wool blanket. My face is going to break out while I wait to hear that I'm going to prison. There was no treated me the same way it did every other time. Like I went and got sentenced.
Okay. What was the biggest misconception you feel people have about those who are incarcerated?
I have to assume that it's a misconception. People feel like anybody who is a criminal or gets incarcerated deserves to be there, deserves what they get, deserves all these things. But if you're if you're thinking that we're in there being rehabilitated, or that our issues that landed us in there in the first place are being looked at or dealt with, then that's a misconception. But if you think that we're in there being dehumanized and degraded and you feel like that's what we deserve, then you don't have a misconception. But I think that you have a detachment from who we are as humans. You see us as our charge. You see us as what we did one time. All it takes is one time to catch that charge. And that's what you see us as, is our worst decision in life. Instead of somebody's sister, mother, cousin, brother, uncle. I tell people a lot that imagine that it is your family member that you can't see. Imagine it's that person that you have to wait to call your phone because you can't call them. It's that person that you have to go into a small room and be patted down and searched before you can go visit that person. Like it hits different when you're affected in that manner, instead of just seeing 35-year-old man um, injures another person while drunk driving, or operating and maintaining meth labs. You busted a house in the neighborhood full of meth labs and 3 people went to jail. Oh, worthless drug addict. Well, hold on though. I'm somebody's mother, sister. I'm somebody's daughter. What kind of help would you offer your family?
Looking back, do you think there were resources or interventions that could have prevented your incarceration?
For me, I'm sure. I'm sure something along the way could have. intervened. But again, you have to decide to obtain the emotional intelligence. And then that emotional intelligence has to evolve. For me being an addict, I had to reach a certain emotional intelligence to realize that having fun on day 1 and day 2 and day 3 slid so quickly into I can't hold down a job, I can't pay my bills, I'm thinking about stealing from people in order to feed my addiction. Like I had to get to a point to where I realized like this isn't fun. This is not actually what I want for my life. The lack of responsibility is always alluring, right? Nobody wants to pay a mortgage and a car payment and an electricity bill. Nobody wants to go to work 40 hours a week and watch your whole paycheck go towards living this life, right? But what I didn't realize is even though that's what my life is today, I would trade it all to have that life for the rest of my life. I don't ever want to go back to, I guess, avoiding what my life was supposed to be.
What do you believe your life was supposed to be?
Definitely more than sticking a needle in my arm in some suburban trap house and making the addictions of the people around me worse. Definitely not that. And really, it's not really too far below that you can go besides death or having to spend your life in prison based on one bad decision. In my own personal opinion, anything I can do to help people be better versions of themselves or recognize their own potential is what my life is supposed to be.
How has being labeled a felon affected your opportunities and relationships since you've been released?
Now it's hard, man. I spent a decade in and out of the systems and charged at 18 with my first felony, and I didn't really understand the effects of it until after the last charge and getting out of prison, because I never attempted to get my own place throughout. From the age of 18 to 26 is when I finally made it to prison for the time I got that first charge. And that was just when I got the charge. I was already using drugs for years before that. So my life was this same sick cycle of avoiding responsibilities, hanging out in trap houses, couch surfing, staying with family members. Like, when I got out, I had hit my rock bottom 9 months into my prison stay. Well, my rock bottom didn't even happen the last time that I got high or when I was out in the streets. My rock bottom happened 9 months after I got incarcerated because I had been sober for a year, relapsed for 4 days, potentially 6 days. I'm not quite sure anymore if it was 4 or 6 days. I thought it was 4 days. Social media says 6 days. And so I relapsed. And I turned myself in because I don't want to be high anymore. I willingly was like, I didn't even want to be high. I just don't know how to be sober. So I went and I turned myself in and find out 6 days into that incarceration that I'm pregnant with my only child and that I'm facing 72 months. And the math is not mathing. I'm supposed to have a baby in 9 months. But I'm supposed to spend 72 months under MDOC, which I also didn't have a recognition of what that meant. I knew I was going to prison, but like your expectations of prison when you've never been there, you don't even know what, you're like, oh, I've been to jail. It's a little bit different. There you know, a little bit different.
Do you think you would have turned yourself in knowing you had been pregnant?
Oh, if I'd have known I had been pregnant, for sure.
If you knew you were pregnant, you would have still turned yourself in?
That would have forced it. Absolutely. That all I ever wanted to be was a mom and a good mom. If I'd have found out I was pregnant, I would have been like, damn it, here I am. But it didn't matter. The fact that I even got high that time was like, oh, fuck. I knew the second I got high that the next time that I called the drop line and they called my name, number, I don't remember what they were calling at that time. When I called the drop line and they called me in, I was going to drop. I'm not hiding it. I don't want to be high. I don't know how I got here again. This shit sucks. So I paid a taxi to take me to prison. Paid a taxi to take me to prison. Yeah.
What about business opportunities and things like that?
I had to make my own. I immediately, so while I was in there, I gained 2 college degrees through Jackson College, general associates in general studies and associates in arts, and I'm 9 credits from a business associate's degree. So I feel great about myself. The last time I was in school was high school, and I graduated a year early because I did all of my work online at my own pace, and I was working 40 hours a week, right? My graduation didn't seem like, it wasn't, I didn't have to go through the full days of multiple classes that I was in Portage. So I graduated, cool, did it, and then I was on my way to go take my ACT, the placement test. I don't know, where they tell you what classes you're going to go into. I had my calculator, my number 2 pencils. I was ready. I pulled in that parking lot and I got nervous or scared, and I turned around and I went and I got an 8-ball and got so high with my boyfriend that night that it's just mixed amongst the sea of other nights so being able to complete those courses inside the prison with the grades that I completed them with was like, oh, shit, I can do this. So even though I don't feel like I've used my degrees since being out, what it did was lend me the self-confidence and assurance that I needed to come out and start the aesthetics schooling. So anything skincare, waxing, lashes. So I went through the aesthetics training and got my license for that. And before I even finished that training, I knew that I wanted to add massage therapy into that because they go so very nicely together. But I chose a different school for that. And I think I was out of school for maybe 4 weeks before I started the massage therapy. And that was very purposeful. I'm going to start these licensings so that I can provide for me and my baby. So that I can provide for me and my baby. I live with no family members. I'm not relying on anybody else for anything. I'm going to provide for me and my child. So I had entry-level positions until I was able to get some of those licensings. I worked at Denny's, I worked at a factory, I worked at a froyo shop. That was my first job. I got a job a week out. Somebody that was my regional manager, general manager, regional manager, I don't know. She was one of my managers before I went in. Stayed in contact when I was in, and then the week I got out said, hey man, like, you need a job? So it felt really good to know that there was somebody out here from even my past that knew that I was a reliable human. Hey, it don't matter. None of that matters. That whole prison bit, all that nonsense, come work for me. And I was like, bet. So I was able to obtain employment, but not a livable wage. I was working 2 jobs at least at all times.
So what's the situation now with your massage therapy? Where's that stand?
My massage therapy, I have to take my exam and then have my background, send in my fingerprints and have my background check pulled. And the massage therapy board has to decide if I'm rehabilitated enough to have that licensing. Which is a little bit odd for me because nobody asked me questions like that for my aesthetics licensing. I took my exam, I got my license, and here I am successful. When I came to massage therapy, my director had even asked me halfway through school, like, did you look into this to make sure that you could have your license? And I kind of brushed it off because I'm like, well, what's the difference between, they let me get my esthetician license. You're way more intimate with people doing that than you are massage therapy, I would say. So, well, more intimate areas. So now I took my exam one time and I failed it because I had a real bad attitude about having to answer. I think the name of it also was triggering for me. Good moral character questions is what Lara labels it. You have to answer these good moral character questions, and if you answer yes to any of these good moral character questions, then you are under further scrutiny, basically. Good moral character for something I did 10 years ago? Okay. And then it's enter each case number, give a description of your crime. Just this overwhelming scrutinization. Whilst I'm sitting here in a house that I pay for and I own a Jeep that I pay for, like, I guess I just felt like I had reached a point where this wasn't going to be an issue. So it knocked me down. I'm knocked down right now. I got to go back and take my exam now. And then go through it doesn't matter that there's no, the other part is that I don't have a choice, right? I can't just go to somebody and be like, this is a trash ass policy and I'm not doing it. In order to be successful in this field, I have to now take the next steps to obtain my licensing. And that means jumping through the hoops that have been set up for me because of my criminal history. Trash. Trash.
Then, what advice would you give to someone growing up in circumstances similar to yours?
Growing up in circumstances? I don't know. I don't know if it's just growing up or in all circumstances. You just gotta keep going.
Let me rephrase the question. Let's just do, what advice would you give to someone growing up in circumstances that were, like you say, you didn't feel like you had a choice? Like with this, you got to do it.
So, well, but this is because of my criminal history. Growing up, I can't. For the growing up advice, there's no advice other than keep going. It doesn't matter how bad it feels. You gotta keep doing it. I guess it's the same for this. It doesn't matter how bad it feels in that moment. It's only a moment. It doesn't matter how many good moral character questions you gotta answer. It doesn't matter how many people tell you no because of your criminal history. It doesn't matter what comes your way. You have to keep trying. You can't just not take your exam because you don't feel like it. Busted.
What are some ways the public can help support individuals transitioning back into society post incarceration?
Educate yourself. Educate yourself. Even if you're in the reentry space, continue to, I almost want to say go to events, right? But that's not real. Find people who are affected. Ask them for their personal stories, because there's so many different variances of the collateral carceral impacts that happen when somebody comes home. Mine are different from everybody else's on my teams. We've all ran into different things that have stopped us from being able to re-enter. And I think one of my favorite conversations I have with people are the people who believe that people with criminal histories are monsters. Not you, Tenee. You're different than they are. I'm not different than they are. I am they, and we are living all around you. And the harder it is for us to re-enter into society or get the help that we need, the higher the chances are that that monster that you believe that we already are has the chance to come back out. And that's, I guess I speak for my addiction side of things solely, right? I can't speak for anybody else, but I know that my crimes were based on my addiction. And when you're in that situation, you just do what needs to be done to survive. So have genuine personal conversations with people who are affected. Talk to people who are already our allies, landlords who rent to us, people who employ us, people who have family members who are affected. because every story is different and you're going to get a different version of the struggles. But you're never going to find somebody that came out and was like, nah, my criminal history didn't affect my life at all. I came out rolling in the dough. And, you know, you're never going to meet that. You will not find a single person who came out of that situation and didn't meet some sort of barrier.
Okay. Those are all those type of questions. Now, what do you think of the Good Nation Project?
Oh, this is epic. This is exposure. So if it doesn't matter what you're doing, right? If it's not exposed, it doesn't matter. So you start a business, but you don't market it. How do you bring in clientele? How do people get to experience whatever skill or service or good that you have? How do they even know it's there? So we find a lot of people out here that are doing the work, right? The reentry work in the reentry space, breaking down the barriers, doing what needs to be done. But there's not a lot of people out here that say that their mission is to expose the reentry space, exposure to what's happening. I think maybe gets left behind sometimes. So this is going to be an integral part in being able to make movements in this space, I think.
What do you hope your part in the Hidden Nation is able to change or contribute?
When people ask me why I do what I do, I tell them all the time that I want to affect generations to come. I want people who never even knew I existed to feel the waves of the work that I get to be a part of. It's such a small part, right? Together we make the biggest waves, and it's going to start with one person who decided that they could do it because they seen my story, and then their children are going to be raised by them in a new manner than what they would have previously. Like a ripple effect, I guess. Shit.